everyone, and welcome to Team Chat Gamecast. I am one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, and I'm joined by Rachel Mogan.
Hey.
And Zach Parks.
What's up?
This is the very first episode of Team Chat, and the purpose of this podcast is for Rachel, Zach, and I to talk to you guys about the games we love. So basically, yeah, let's kind of like go around and kind of maybe just talk about what we each want from this podcast.
I want to talk about my own interests. I would like to not talk about anybody else's interests. Obviously, yes. I'm going to be really a good contributor to the podcast, but really, I'm really interested to hear about other types of games that both of you are interested in, because I think that I might be a little bit of an outlier. From past conversations with both of you, it seems like I might play games that you typically don't. Case in point, Call of Duty and Halo. Not really a fan of either of those to much of an extent, so I'm interested to hear about why you really love those particular games.
Awesome.
I like it. I like what you said about it's more about us, and it's not so much about the news of the gaming industry, or maybe we'll touch on that stuff.
We'll talk about that.
But I do like our own personal relationships with games and kind of what they mean to us and how we've sort of evolved with them and where they've kind of gone through in our relationship to them. I think it's much more interesting.
Right.
Yeah. And Zach and I come from film backgrounds. And so like one of the things that when we started talking about doing this first originally was that we wanted to do something where we really address the creative effort and talent that goes into creating a game. We didn't want this to be something where we come in and we talk about it and we're like, hey, I really love this game. Why? It was just an awesome game. No.
That's a terrible excuse.
Exactly. That gives no body to what we're actually talking about. But if we are talking about like, oh, I loved the art of this game. The music was fantastic. The gameplay mechanics were great. Then that will set us up for like a really good, to provide meat to what we're saying. And I think that's what we more wanted to be a place to be able to freely discuss what it is about a game that we love. And so, but yeah, I think a good thing, since this is the first episode of Team Chat Gamecast, everyone, that we, should kind of give a little bit of background about us, like, who we are, what got us into playing games in the first place, and like, and yeah, then like what are like top 3 favorite games, something like that. So
now, are we going to start backwards, start with our least favorite of the 3 and work up,
again.
or are we going to start with number 1 and work down from there?
I'd say 3-1.
3-1,
That's
gotcha.
kind of where I was going. So then you can always hit with the number 1 and be like, boom.
Yeah.
Good.
This is my number 3.
Bomb.
Right on.
My number 1. So, Zach, why don't you start off?
But we want to talk briefly about our own relationships with games.
We're going to
we're going to go back in time.
Yep.
Going to go back in time
to the wee childhood years.
Back to approximately...
I'm going before that.
When I was conceived.
I'm going way back. It's hazy, for sure. And I bet you the first sort of kind of gaming system that I played on was PC. I'm talking games like Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. Real big one. Anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's games called like Delta Squad Sniper. I mean, these look kind of obscure, weird games.
Not the ones that would come like prepackaged in a PC, but like they were one, or were they?
No, they weren't.
They weren't. Okay.
They weren't. They were. You bought them at like. I bought a lot of games at Toys R Us, I remember.
Right.
Which I think is funny.
It used to be the hotspot to go for games.
It kind of was. And it's but anyways, so I kind of started on the PC. Call of Duty was a big one that I kind of started with. Yep.
Just right out of the gate. That's
right
the
out
one.
of the gate. I was like, Mom, Dad, I need to learn about this. Make it fun for me.
They were probably horrified.
Oh, I'm sure my parents were very displeased about my addiction to gaming early on. They must have thought it was unfortunate, for sure. But yeah, Call of Duty was my first introduction to first-person shooters, which I'm a huge fan of. I know Jarrett's also a fan of.
Yep.
So that was kind of my storming the beaches of Normandy virtually was pretty thrilling for me as a 10-year-old.
No, I liked it because I had seen Saving Private Ryan, and like the storming the beach level in Call of Duty looks very similar and felt very similar to Saving Private Ryan, and I was like, oh my god, yes. I'm on the beaches.
Yes, and I'm sure if we went back and played it, we'd be like, this is very unrealistic. These graphics don't hold up as well as I thought they would. But then I got into console games. We're talking Sega Genesis, N64, skipped over PlayStation, got PlayStation 2. But my N64 and Sega Genesis days have a very special place in my heart. That is when I was really playing a lot and probably too much and really started to appreciate these games and like kind of you really build these relationships with them. And you know, when I think back in my memory in my childhood, I think about Star Fox, I think about Sonic, I think about SOCOM for PS2. These are games that are major importance in my childhood. You know, they're really something special for me. They're a lot of fun, and like obviously to everyone's dismay, I was in my room a lot playing these video games. But it's like reading a book, watching a movie. I mean, I going back to what we were talking about before, they deserve to be in that canon of artistic crafts because of solely on, you know, really the kind of relationship you can build with I don't want to say consumer, but a player or a reader or a viewer.
I mean, that's why people play games for years and years and years, and they keep releasing more and more, and you're still going to go back and buy them because you have that relationship. And a lot of people default to, oh, it's just nostalgia. You don't understand. You're not quite grasping that this has been a major player in my entire life. It's not something that you can just cut out.
Well, like World of Warcraft. I mean, good God, how many years has that been in existence?
True.
Now? You know, and they're making a movie about it now.
Are they really? A live action movie?
A live action movie.
What's going to happen in the movie?
I don't know. I just know they are making a movie about it. The lead actor from the Viking series is going to be a human in it and stuff like that, but it's going to be like human-orc conflict. So I'll see it for sure. But like, and they're coming out with a new expansion. That game is just going to go on forever.
It's never going to end. That's an ongoing game. Yep. I mean, I could go on, and as throughout this podcast evolves, you will hear more about my early days of gaming. I'll save some of it and some specific games for other times, but that was kind of when I found out I was addicted. I found out I had a problem.
Much to your parents' dismay.
Yes, but it's all worth it because now, finally, or at least we're getting to a place, if we're not already there, that these games are getting serious attention as artistic forms.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's something that's great, and I hope we can discuss and elaborate on that throughout the years.
For sure.
Right.
Okay, so Mogan, how about you? How did you get started?
Well, Zach touched on having a relationship with games, but a huge part of my childhood wasn't just video games, it was forming relationships with other people with video games as that common medium.
Yep.
My very first friend that I ever made, some of my first memories, Maggie Trollinger, back on Moccasin Trail actually, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Her family was the only one in the neighborhood that had an N64. And when I made my very first friend, I was so excited. We would go over to her house and we would play Mario. And that was the first game I ever had exposure to. And they didn't even have two controllers. They had one controller. So she would literally just play the game. She was not good at sharing. So she would just play the game and I would just sit there and watch. And that was the whole thing. And I was so happy. That was something we would do all the time. I mean, we also went outdoors and played like children in the 90s used to back in the day.
Right.
But so that was my first.
Which Mario was it?
I think it was actually Mario 64.
That might come up later in the show.
Right. Might come up later in the show.
A little teaser for you, everyone.
But then, so eventually we did move away. It was very sad. Broke things off with Maggie, not officially, just sort of phased out. But then when we were a little bit older, my younger brother and I were only separated by 2 years, so we're very close. We are very close to this day, largely in part to video games. I have a really good relationship with my brother, and when we were young, something that we would do together all the time was play video games. So our first console as a family was the PlayStation 1, and some of the very first games we had were Spyro and Crash Bandicoot and The Legend of Dragoon. People probably have never heard of that one. I'll talk about it a lot more eventually.
It sounds familiar.
It does sound familiar.
I have so many opinions about the game. But so a huge thing just in my life is that video games have been the way I've connected with other people because I genuinely love them. And when other people love them just as much as me, that's a major connection. So I have friends from high school, from college, to adulthood, that they are still major players in my life because we play together.
Nice.
Yeah, I totally get that. I totally know what you mean.
Yep.
Very similar experiences.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how we all three came together. Is like I met Zach, and we were just talking about doing some video projects together, and then I was just like, dude, I really like games, and I would love to figure out a way to like combine the two together into the same thing because that's what I've always wanted to do. And Zach was like, Me too.
No way.
Preaches to the choir here, And so then he introduced me to Mogan, and and then we met, and we've been talking about it since then. And then this is why the podcast is here. So and it's we're here, we're doing it, and it's all because we have the shared interest of games, and that is awesome.
Yes, and that's probably why the listeners are here too.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All the thousands and thousands of listeners.
We're laughing and crying.
But yeah, so just a little bit about where I came from. The first game I remember playing was on a Mac, actually, when Macintosh, oh god, I can't even think of what it was called, but it was the really disgusting beige boxes that they used to be.
Yeah, I remember.
And the games that I would play there, it had Shanghai or Mahjong pre-installed, and I'd play that. My dad set me up on that, and I started playing that when I was 5 on there. And then there was another game that was on a floppy drive that was called Battle Chess, where there's this animated chess thing where you would play it, and whenever you captured a piece, if it was a knight fighting a pawn, he would dismember the pawn with his sword, and it was amazing. And I loved it.
Finally, chess is fun.
Exactly. And so I did that, and then as I got older, started playing a few more different things. I think the first console I played was over at my cousin's house. It was the Super Nintendo, and we played Donkey Kong Country, and love Donkey Kong Country, and still play it to this day whenever I can. I got it on actually an emulator on my Mac, so I can play it on my Mac and not on the Super Nintendo anymore.
Is that the 2D scroller?
Yeah,
is that
the
2D scroller? I played
some
Donkey Kong Country for sure.
I love Donkey Kong Country.
Yes.
And so I got into that, played that, and then eventually started getting more games for my computer. My dad had a friend who would sell old Mac stuff, because that's what I grew up on was a Mac, which is, I feel very different from the time when everyone was using PC for everything, and still kind of are. But anyway, so before Macs were popular. And so my dad had a friend who would sell Apple equipment and stuff out of his garage, and just would kind of
fix. Sounds extremely sketch. That sounds like not a real
business. Sounds like Steve Jobs.
It was more of a thing he would fix them and repair them, or sell resell some things and stuff like that. But he would have a couple of games in his garage that he would let me and my brother take. I was definitely more into them than my brother was, but it was still fun getting to have a new game, go home and open it and play it and all this other stuff. And so, it just got that definitely fed my love of video games and everything like that. But then, as time went on, it just, I got into them more and more. Like Zach says, definitely went through a period where I was heavily addicted to them, which my parents definitely did not enjoy.
Right. You had a period where you weren't playing that much.
I only had computer based. My parents didn't want us to buy a console just because they thought
for
that
good
was,
reason. They were drawing the line.
Yeah, and I back then I was very upset about it. I couldn't have N64 when all my friends did, but now I look back on it because instead of sitting inside playing video games all day, my dad was like, go mow a yard, learn how to work, which I really appreciate now. But at the time, I was like, damn it.
It's not fair.
Why can't I have Mario too? But so I only had Mac games, and then was only allowed to play 30 minutes a day and not guaranteed to be able to play every day.
Right.
But I still got to play through quite a few, and I'll talk about some of those games here in a little bit. But no, it was really great. That's kind of where I got fed. And then when I moved to Austin is when I actually bought my first console. It was the PS3. But
that wasn't that long ago.
It was 6 years ago. So
I'm a little startled.
I've built up my collection a lot since then. I mean, now I've gone back. My wife and we bought an N64 from an old friend of hers and had the big games on it. Mario Kart, N64, Perfect Dark. A couple of others. We haven't been able to find GoldenEye yet, and a couple of the old classics.
You can find GoldenEye somewhere.
It's out there.
You've been making up for lost time, though.
Yeah,
you have certainly caught
and then my wife also is awesome in feeding my addiction now, and she bought me a PlayStation 1 for Christmas last year.
Beautiful.
I will loan you The Legend of Dragoon, and you have to play it.
I will play.
It's mandatory.
I will do that. And then
which one is it?
Legend of Dragoon.
Oh yeah,
the most underrated RPG that no one has ever played except me.
And so now I have a PlayStation 1, PS3, Xbox 360. PlayStation 4 and still keep N64 and still keep a pretty good collection on my Mac. So making up for lost time. And so, and really trying to break through and, experience all. So, but that being said, there are still plenty of classic games that I have not been able to go back and replay. And I'm slowly trying to pick up the ground hunt for that.
Me too.
Me too. So, and I'm sure that our experiences in that will be shared throughout this podcast as time goes on too.
Yeah,
So
I wonder if games are in the same sense. Like for films, I feel pretty well versed in the film universe as far as classics go.
Yeah.
But there's something about games that, as much as I believe that I've played a fair amount and know a fair amount, there just
there's
seems
so many.
like there's so many more that I
Yeah.
can't keep up with.
And it's also now, it's like, you know, if you didn't grow up with them now, because of, especially like, to go back and play like an old classic game like that, it has to be like, you really have to be certain that it is a classic game.
Right.
And you're not just going to waste time with it. Especially because, like, for me, and a hard thing to get over it with me, and I'm getting better about it, is, you know, since I am into film and all that stuff, I like things to look pretty. And sometimes, like, some of those older games just don't look pretty.
You just
and if
can't
it doesn't,
get into it.
Like some older RPGs and stuff like that, like, if, you know, pixel art RPG kind of thing, it's just like, man, or 8-bit, you know.
I mean,
whatever. It's
people
just
are
like,
definitely a little bit spoiled in the visuals department these days because things are so insane.
Right.
So it can be really hard to go back to those really old games, and not only the visuals, but the game mechanics are obviously hugely different.
Right.
And that can really initially turn someone off when actually, if they would continue to play the game, they might find out they really love it, but they can never get past that initial stage of horror and balking at just the quality of the game from its time period.
Right.
Which is a conversation we should have at some point in this show, because that's an interesting thing that's happening. And you see some games, especially on your iPhone. I'm thinking of like Super Sword Brothers. I don't know if I think that's the right title. It's all 8-bit but beautiful. It's like the color palette is really well done, and it's 2D, all 8-bit, really cool.
Well, there's a huge resurgence of 8-bit games coming back now, and I've played some of those, and they're a lot of fun. But they also have, like, you know, since they're on more advanced systems, there are slightly, like, the gameplay mechanics are better,
right,
and everything than some of those old ones. So, but still, I am forcing myself to go back and play some of those, because I do know that, yes, there is a lot to learn and to take in just from the history standpoint of where video games have started and where they've come to.
Right. That's
so,
true.
You know, but yeah, that would make an excellent topic for another episode. But, you know, in the interest of letting our listeners know more about us,
just keep talking about us.
This is all about us. This is the only reason we did this, is to feed our massive egos.
We need an outlet.
It just got really tiring talking to just ourselves about all this. Let's go with our favorites. Starting with our number 3, I think so. Unless you guys have something else you'd like to touch on before that, but I mean, I think let's get right to it.
Let's jump in.
There's going to be some debate, possibly some.
Well, top 3. I mean, come on. Can we just talk about the question?
I feel like the main point of debate would be within your own self about what you want to be in your top 3, because it took so long just to pick anything.
It took me forever to pick my second. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's totally my second, but it's just like thinking back through all the games that I played in my past, I was just like, no, these games had a big effect, or this game, you know, for whatever reason, I feel like they deserve to be in the top 3.
It could also be that there's that idea that you only have a set amount of decisions that you're able to make in a day.
Yeah.
I wrote my list at like 10 p.m. I was probably out of decisions by then, so I just had to pick any 3, not think about it too hard.
So let's go around, and we'll each start with our number 3, and we'll each list our number 3. Then we'll go through our number 2 and our number 1. So Mogan, kick us off.
Initially, I wrote that my number 3 was going to be BioShock 2. Okay. There are tons of reasons that I love that game. I do love first-person shooters with conditions. So that was initially going to be my number 3, but I changed my mind. I'm going to go with Tomb Raider from 2012 for the PS3. So the Tomb Raider reboot was revolutionary. Again, going back to relationships, when I was really young, we had a PC. My own mom was addicted to Tomb Raider. It's the only game she has ever loved. She has played all of them, from PC to eventually consoles. So finally, I never played them myself. So finally, when Tomb Raider made it to the PS3, I thought, oh, this is probably something that I can finally get on board with. And when I first played the game, I was blown away. Not only by the visuals, because the visuals are still amazing. You can still go back and play that game and just be in awe of how beautiful it is.
Right.
But getting to know Laura as her younger self, so it's essentially a prequel. So it's the prequel to all of the other games that technically in the timeline came before then. So becoming Laura is essentially the story, and how you do so is pretty violent. It's a pretty fun and violent game. There's a lot of shooting, a lot of fighting, and the game mechanics in and of themselves are phenomenal. So the gameplay is just on its own level. I could replay that game 1,000 times. Technically, things don't really change when you do them from one level to the next. You can go back and it will still be pretty much the same, but it doesn't lose that value for me. Even though I've done it all before, I will still do it again, and I will still have just as much fun playing it again as I did the very first time. So that's why it's my number 3.
Yeah, I agree. That's an excellent game. I played that on the PS3 too, and they came out with the definitive edition for the PS4. We'll buy that at some point.
I didn't know that.
I just have some other things in my backlog that I want to finish up first. But no, that game was fantastic because for that reason, like of becoming Laura, that was awesome. And just because, yeah, it took a total step back. It could have just picked up where one of the older games left off and just been like, oh, you're just a Tomb Raider. But no, having to learn to become the Tomb Raider and all of the consequences that go along with that decision, although granted, most of them were forced upon her in this game without getting too spoilery. But, it's still an excellent game.
And actually playing it, so it's not really a multiplayer game, but my mom, obviously it was actually her game. So she would play during the day and she would be like, oh, I'm beating you. I've got X odd percentage. You're never going to catch up. And then she would go to bed and I would stay up for hours.
Nice.
And I would catch up to wherever she was and try to surpass her. So it was a lot of fun playing a game with my mom because it's really the only game that she and I would be able to play together. So that's a huge part of my adult life. So this was recently.
Yeah.
So it was
2012.
just, that's right.
Remind me, did this get Game of the Year? Did Tomb Raider,
it won so many awards, but I'm not sure.
It won like 70 awards, but
I don't think it got
Game
so
of the Year.
many.
Okay. Maybe
Which
that was Batman,
it got
Knight.
robbed. So
Well, it's interesting. I was just recently thinking about these, like Batman getting Game of the Year, and I thought Tomb Raider got Game of the Year, and I had a conflict in my head about franchises like this being awarded those kind of awards. And I think about like, I'll probably do this a lot, is related to film, but I think about the Cannes Film Festival and how the only winners, the Palme d'Or winners, I think have to be original screenplays.
Oh.
And so I think about that stuff when it comes to Batman or Tomb Raider. I wonder if they should be allowed. I know that might not, be a great argument, but I just wonder.
In this particular case, I would say yes, just because the reboot was a huge... You really can think of them as being completely different lines of games.
Especially since this one was more of a reboot of the Lara Croft series. It's not like
because the Lara Croft series had really been kind of dying out. It had been losing a lot of popularity. So the reboot, which is actually a completely different game, really revived the entire series. And now, the next Tomb Raider that's coming out next year for the PS4 is one of the most talked about games from this most recent E3.
Yeah.
So obviously, the game succeeded in generating a ton of new interest from players that may not have given it a second look.
Yep.
True.
I gotta wait through that stupid Microsoft exclusivity first because it's coming out like
I know. My mom is so mad.
I'm so mad about that.
We're a Sony family. We are not pleased about that.
That was very annoying to hear. But I was at first it was just like it's going to be a Microsoft exclusive, and I was like, damn it, because I was just like that. So is it going to come to the PS4 ever, or is that just another game that I have to buy an Xbox One?
I will happily wait it out.
Oh, I'll wait.
That is
I will
great for me
patiently
being
wait.
an Xbox boy.
Yeah,
that's wonderful to hear.
But to answer your question, in 2012, the game of the year was actually Journey.
Okay, I'm not mad anymore.
Yeah, I know. So
Never mind.
That's kind of what I was touching on. Journey seemed like such an original game that you almost want to highlight those games a little bit more.
Yeah.
Give them the spotlight.
Yeah.
Because that does. I have not
That's
played
exciting.
it. I've seen some info on it. It looks very cool.
If you haven't
it just
listened,
came to PS4, so I'm gonna pick it up.
and if you haven't listened to just the soundtrack, even without having played the game, the soundtrack
I've heard
is
it's very good.
phenomenal.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a game from 2006. So not too long ago, but I guess now almost 10 years ago. Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Hold on for a second. Your phone is causing some massive feedback.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't need it.
I got you. I got our spreadsheet pulled up. Oh, beautiful. So I'll just come back. I'll just start back on our number 3. Zach, what's your number 3?
My number 3 comes from 2006, so almost 10 years ago. It is Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And obviously, like everyone here, I had trouble figuring out what my top 3 would be, especially my number 3. Like, what did I want to put there? Elder Scrolls, now I have not played the ones before that. Oblivion was my first one that I did play for the original Xbox, and it was really the first game that I really think I can remember that had a real open world. And what I mean by that is like, it was one of those ideas where like, oh, you see those mountain ranges in the distance, you can go there. And I was like, that is mind blowing.
I mean, compared to 2D side scrollers.
Yeah, of course. And I was infatuated. And the story, the gameplay, the look, so many wonderful things about the music. I'm not a big medieval era person, but there was something about inhabiting this person and making my own character. And I mean, you just remember the first like 10 minutes of the game, as a lot of games do now, is devoted just to like how your nose looks, you know, and like fixing your skin color. And I love that stuff. That's awesome. And you get that anxiety when you're about to hit start and like you can't, it's like,
is this really what I want?
Yeah,
is this really how I want to be for the whole game?
Yeah, I know.
Be locked into this person forever.
I know. It's tough. But there's a sequence in there that happens early on in the game where you're going through some dungeons, you're escorting the king of God, what is the
is it Tamriel?
Yeah, Tamriel. And you're escorting him out of the dungeon and he gets killed by a skeleton. Sorry, you're gonna find out in the first 5 minutes. It's not a big spoiler. Sorry. And but as you head out, you get to a point where a little thing pops up on the screen. It says, are you sure you're happy with your character? Are you sure you're happy with everything? You say yes.
That's such an existential question.
It is, I know. And of course, it's very difficult to answer. But you eventually get out through these gates, and it's the entire world. And the music swells, everything comes up, and like crabs walk on the beach. I'm serious. And you're like a level 1, so you're beating the shit out of crabs for like hours trying to break up. And it's kind of like, go do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
They give you some nav points. They give you some ideas of where you might want to go to do the story. But it's that idea of freedom, which I never really experienced before in a game. So that was the first one. And that we'll talk about maybe some of our favorite gaming moments. Coming out of that dungeon in Elder Scrolls Oblivion was absolutely one of my kind of most memorable gaming moments that I've had.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can talk about it was one of my first RPGs. It got me into role-playing games that I never knew I would even enjoy. So that was very interesting to play these new types of games. It opened up a whole world for me. So I had to include on my top 3 as just a game that not only I loved, but like it kind of showed me what gaming could be.
Yep.
You know, it changed things for me. And obviously I was like, there are so many more RPGs that came out before this, and I know did similar things. But just for me personally, that was the one. Right. And I have not gone back and replayed it. Obviously, Skyrim came out, and I'm, and I was a big fan of Skyrim, but not close to Oblivion. That's a whole other conversation. I think that game comes very below what Oblivion had. There's a difficulty in Oblivion that Skyrim doesn't seem to have.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome. All right. Well, mine is more of a whole series rather than one game. It is the Civilization series. And
over my head.
Yeah.
Me too. That's 2 out of 3 that don't know anything about those.
No, the Civilization series was Civilization 2 is the first one I played in that series, and I found it in my dad's friend's garage.
Out of the closet.
And had, you know, it just looked cool to me, and I grabbed it, and man, how old was I? I was probably like 8 or 9 probably at this point. And started playing it and just loved it. Now that is one of those games that if you went to go back and play now, you would be like, these graphics are terrible. Like, this looks like kind of terrible. But for me, again, it's like I played it, I loved it, and I put so many hours into that game. But I say the series because I've kept up with that series as they've released more games. I got Civilization 3 when it came out. Played the shit out of it. Just like
toast.
It just like played so much of that game.
Gone.
And so, you know, and it was great, and it improved on it. But the graphical, what was cool about that one is the huge graphical difference from Civilization 2 to Civilization 3. Like your troops were actually animated. Your cities, the map was animated itself. The pieces didn't like slide from space to space. They actually moved and walked there, and it gave it this bigger feeling, like when you had a huge army, you went and attacked another empire and civilization and stuff, that you were actually amassing like a massive army, and it was a fantastic feeling.
Give me an idea of what the objective is in Civilization.
It's a world building game.
It is.
It's a world building. It's a turn-based strategy game. Basically, you start off with a settler unit, and then you found a city, and then from that city you slowly expand and build more cities. Mm-hmm. You can build military units, and you have to discover, but like everything is locked behind technology. So you have to discover technology, which will unlock like this military unit. So like playing a Civilization game is no small feat. Like I could probably count on one hand the number of games I've actually finished from like, or from like start to the end, like you have finished. So many games I've played, I've gotten like halfway through it, they just got destroyed by another place. But it takes so much time to get to that point that it's like, man, it's like, but even now, like I haven't been able to get Beyond Earth, the most recent one yet. I haven't got it yet, but I'm playing Civilization 5 right now. And this is why it's in my 3, because like I said, I kept up with the series. And the series as a whole, of playing it from 8 to, so almost 20 years of playing this one series, and I still love it. And can you just get sucked in? I can take a break and not play it for a while, come back and just spend hours in it. And Civ itself acknowledges that fact that you can just get sucked in, because they started the hashtag on social media, the hashtag one more turn, because that's what you just tell yourself. You tell yourself that the whole time you're playing, like, okay, I just finished this big war, one more turn and I'm done. And then 100 turns later, you're still saying, one more turn and I'm done.
You're bending the rules a little bit. I didn't know we could do.
Series it seems like cheating.
I left it. That's okay. I put it series in parentheses in the notes, so I felt like that was fairly.
We just didn't read the notes.
I feel like that was very like letting you guys know, hey, it's the series of this game, because like of every one that I've played, I've always loved it, and for just the length of time that I've been playing it is why I call that one my number 3. But if I have to choose one of the series to stay fair with picking a game, Civilization 3.
Okay. My only exposure to Civilization is that Video Games Live did, I think, a Civilization suite from the soundtrack.
Civilization 4 Baba Yetu.
And it came on, and I was like, what game is this from?
Music?
Yeah, it's
good music.
Yeah,
oh my god!
Or at least that one song on that one CD that I used to listen to all the time. I was like,
look it
I
up,
should
everyone.
probably
Video Games Live, Baba Yetu, Civilization 4.
It's amazing. It really is
interesting. Wow, I didn't see. It's interesting. I always saw those games as kind of like that wasn't any kind of aspect of it. It was just all strategy. There's no emotional.
The music is in the what plays during the video that starts at the beginning of the when you load the game, or like when you launch the game and stuff.
Okay.
But still, like, man,
really
I listen to that song on repeat.
It's fantastic.
It's awesome.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that would be my.
It's just too bad that you can't really like sing along to it. It's really.
Oh, I try.
I mean, I make the effort, but I just get the noises out. There are lyrics, but they're not.
It's lyrics for Civilization game.
No, it's in I believe Swahili.
I think it is.
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. I was like,
I think something like that, but no, it's definitely not that.
Take over the world.
It's like Frank Sinatra.
Build up your army.
Build your army.
Fight the world.
You can do it.
So I would say number 3 would be Civilization 3.
Okay.
All right, going back around the table
moving on to number 2.
Number 2.
Obviously, soundtracks, you're going to hear me harp on and on about this. That's a musical pun, by the way. I'm going to harp on about everything. So soundtracks is definitively one of the things that can make or break a game for me.
Absolutely.
I could hate the gameplay of a game, but if the music is well done enough, I will play it anyways, because I will still get so much enjoyment out of it just from the audio aspect of it. So my number 2 combines both audio and visual. One of my favorite games of all time, it was really hard to decide if this was going to be number 1 or number 2, is going to be Okami. So this was the Wii console platform. It originally came out on PS2, but then they transferred it over to the Wii, which made sense because I don't know how much you know about the game, but you are basically a wolf goddess, and part of your gameplay is that you paint calligraphy symbols to enact certain powers within the game.
Yeah, so the Wii remote would.
That's right. So the Wii remote, you got to point at the screen and draw your commands, and that was how you fought. It was the whole system, and it was so well done on the Wii that I did actually try to play it on the PS2 once, because that was all my friend had at her house, and it was I couldn't go back. Like, once you're able to actually have that very physical connection between you and what you're seeing, you can't really regress. But so the game's visuals and the sounds were just overwhelming. It is such a graphic game. It is so colorful. There is so much to see and do that when I first played it, it was hard to even absorb everything that was happening. So basically, you're this wolf goddess. You're going through the game, obviously ridding the world of evil. And as you do so, you're trying to build up your following. So in a certain aspect, it does sort of have undertones of religion, ancient Japanese and Chinese influences. But I don't want to get... It's not a new game. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but...
What year are we talking about?
This was
2006, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think a couple of
this
years...
coming out.
Yeah,
I
a year
seeing
later,
it
too.
online and stuff.
I saw the first thing... I saw it on X-Play, back when X-Play used to still be a show.
Blast from the past.
I saw Adam Sessler and Morgan
Oh my
Webb
God.
reviewed it, and I was like, I
Sessler.
trust them.
Gotta play this game now.
I gotta play this game.
Yeah.
So their review didn't even do it justice. It just blows your mind. And the replay value is still there, maybe not to the same extent. So it is a very storied game. So once you know the whole story, it does sort of take away a little bit of the magic because you know what's coming. It's not like the ending is going to change. It's always going to be the same ending.
Right.
But so when I first played the first time around, I think I missed certain cues that I didn't pick up on until the second time I played it through, because there were just little hints and things along the way that I didn't initially make the connection of this big shift in the story. So since the game is meant to take place in, ancient Asian civilization, it's very feudal. There's not technology in the game. But then it takes this sudden turn. I don't want to release all the spoilers in case anybody hasn't played it, but it takes a turn for almost being a sci-fi kind of game. The way the story shifts, I didn't realize it until later on, so it felt very sudden to me. I think you could have caught on to it sooner than that, but I didn't. I'm a very oblivious player. I'll just play and la la la, this is so fun. But then eventually I realized that it was taking this huge shift in a really interesting direction. And it was so jarring. I was so surprised by it. It just added this whole new dimension to the game for me. So that's probably why it's my number 2, maybe even number 1. I would have to give it some more thought.
So give me an example of, you are controlling the wolf goddess. Now, correct. If you want the wolf goddess to do something, you have to give it a command. Is that right? So it's very intuitive. So obviously you control the movements just via the Wii nunchuck. But so you really only use the paint style, either in the environment in a non-combat scenario or more likely in a combat scenario. So essentially in the game, it's not the kind of thing where you're just roaming around and you could run into enemies at any time. When you do run into enemies, the game creates an enclosed battle space. So it's almost like an arena where you only have a limited amount of space to fight whatever the enemies are. Nice. So it's not open world in the concept of battle in combat. So essentially, whenever you come across something that you want to fight, it automatically engages, and then you would use your commands to paint all kinds of things. So you can use fire, you can use water, you can slow down time, do all of this really fun stuff, and there are all kinds of basically power-ups. So there are things that you can miss out on that you could potentially never get in the game because the game doesn't force you. But if you do all of the little tiny side quests in every corner of the game, anyone that's played Okami will understand the frustration of having to collect beads for the ultimate weapon. Beads! So actual beads on like a rosary, it's awful. I actually never completed it. It was something I could not do. So technically the game is not 100% completed for me, and it might never be because it was so very difficult. That 100% completion thing is an interesting that you brought up earlier. That
will have to be a top.
Yeah.
It's got to be because
it's so hard.
I'd like to say,
so
I beat that game.
No, you have
like,
not
it's like
either.
80%. You know, it's like, fuck,
you're
I'm not even close.
You're not even close.
I have all the green stars.
The worst part is games where they have the ending based on how much percentage you completed in the game.
Yeah.
What do you mean, like the ending changes?
Yeah, like the ending changes depending on how much you actually completed in the game. Final Fantasy X-2 was especially one that I loved that game, but I never could get the perfect, most happiest ending because 100% in the game took so much time.
That's right. You're a Final
and commitment.
Fantasy.
I am. I think I'm the only one, aren't I?
Yeah.
Of the three of us.
I'm finding out that, I have not played these games that you guys are discussing.
need to get on it.
Well, maybe you haven't played my games.
We need to all do some research, gameplay research.
Too many games out there.
God, so many. My backlog is ridiculously full right now.
And really, I've played more of the older games than I have of the newer, so I'm definitely missing these big gaps in these huge, impactful games that I feel bad for missing out on because I know I would love them. I referenced BioShock 2. I haven't yet played BioShock Infinite, which I hear people...
I have played BioShock Infinite.
Don't tell us about it. I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it, so don't tell me.
It's in my backlog too.
I'd say I like the first one better.
Really?
I haven't played the second one. I played first and then skipped to Infinite, but there is something about the atmosphere in the first one.
The first one is excellent.
It's an excellent game. The whole big daddy little girl thing is just...
See,
it's
in
like
BioShock
really
2...
weird, and then it's like... But then like the twist ending, I don't know. At some point, for a certain game, if it's old enough, we have to like be like, okay,
we have to be able to talk about the spoilers.
Yeah.
So this game is from 1967. I'm not sure.
all the like discovering the meaning behind "Would you kindly" like blew my mind.
What is that?
It's like when the guy who's like telling you to go everywhere and do everything. He always says everything like, "Would you kindly do this?" And it turns out that's like some mental trigger that he put in you to make you do things for him.
Right.
And that he's actually the bad guy you're hunting the whole time. That happened, and I was like, "Holy crap! This is amazing."
Going from that game to BioShock 2, what made BioShock 2 for me was being the big daddy, was being this enemy that you used to have to be so afraid of, but then suddenly you were him, and that was just so meaningful for me because despite how much I tried to harvest the energy from the little sisters, I couldn't do it. I had to be the nice guy. I had to always actually save them. Never did manage to get the more evil ending.
Yeah.
I never played the second one, so I could never be the big daddy, but I knew that you could. I knew they had a multiplayer component too.
They did.
But I didn't hear great things about it.
I mean, I was bad, so I never won.
I mean, it's like so many games, like even the Tomb Raider that you brought up, it has a multiplayer.
Oh, it does? We've never even played.
But exactly. Like I played it one time and was like,
are you both Laura?
No.
How does it work?
No, you can be any of the characters that are in the game. But it's just like, it's just like, it's a weird game, like to throw a multiplayer into.
That seems really, I don't even think my mom knows.
Yeah,
I'm going to call her and ask her about it. And she's going to be like, no, there's no multiplayer mode.
There are a lot of games like that I'm like, why does this have a multiplayer?
Like some games just don't, it just doesn't belong.
Yeah, no, it doesn't at all. All right.
Numero dos for me. Oh gosh. Okay. So I'm realizing my answers are so fucking cliche, and I feel bad about it.
Swear to God, if it's Call of Duty,
it's Jesus. It's not going to be Call of Duty. Jared, don't say anything.
If that was on any of our lists,
what if I said Call of Duty Black Ops 2?
Yeah, Black Ops 2 is my favorite. No, it's like there's the door. You're not welcome back for any future
off the podcast.
Hey, anyone out there, we need another host.
Cliche answer, but a great game, Mario 64.
That's an amazing game.
Well,
amazing game. So you guys both played Mario 64?
Yes.
1996, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So we can have a discussion about this, but basically, a lot of bias goes into these questions. When you think about your favorite games, I'm thinking about the ones that are my personal favorite. Not the best made, but even though Mario 64 deserves to be on that list as well. That, the image that comes to mind isn't even of the game. It's of me and my friend playing the game, in his bonus room upstairs above his parents' bedroom and playing on this old TV with our babysitter next to us and collecting these stars. And it wasn't so much, it was obviously how you did it. I mean, the 3D was one of the first times I had played a really, truly well-made 3D game. The camera did really well, which I'm sure is a difficult thing to do in those days.
Especially back then. I'm sure
it's probably difficult to do now.
Well, shit.
I have no idea how to do that.
No, I can't do it. But the whole castle dynamic and the way the castle opens up as you progress is something just really special. There's something very interesting and neat and obviously now nostalgic for me to think about the rooms. And it's such a simple idea that I think Nintendo in general is able to execute so well. You talk about like Luigi's Mansion, or you talk about the Zelda games. There's something they do so well with the atmosphere in very unconventional places that I wouldn't think would work. And the thing about the castle and the thing that is so interesting is obviously the paintings and the different levels. But jumping into a painting and going into like the snow world where Mama Penguin is, and you have to go save the baby penguin. Obviously, everyone knows that, but and then you throw it off sometimes. I know we've all thrown the penguin off the cliff.
Is it possible to
I'm
do
not sure
this?
we have, Zach.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's
Well, it's
interesting.
possible.
Good. All that stuff, the music, we talk about music being such an important part. Obviously, all the Mario scores have, are classics.
Very catchy tunes.
Yeah.
Very catchy. There's a brightness to it. There's an optimism. There is
A happiness.
there's a happiness. There's a good versus evil that's simple, and obviously why so many people love these games.
Yep.
And I think Mario 64 was just, obviously, I'm not the first person to say this, but it's, they really hit a pinnacle with what they were doing with that franchise. And
It's my favorite Mario game.
And
it's still I love Mario Galaxy and stuff, but it's still there. I would say the level designs, all the levels are just classics. The sand level and twirling off into the sand tornadoes. Yep. All the different hats you can get. Like, I mean, you got the Metal Mario, you can walk underwater, and the secrets, man. The secrets going into the ghost world, going. I think there's a hole under the castle moat that
There is.
I'm
that
not
you
sure
can
I
go
ever got
into,
there.
and you slide down, you get the 8 red coins. I mean, the amount of things that you can do and the amount of kind of secrets that are in there make it something that I think is really special.
And going to that from the 2D side scroller format was really, as a kid, I looked at it and went, whoa,
Yeah.
what happened? Like, I looked at it with confusion because, well, where do I go?
I can
Like,
go
what
almost
do I do?
Yeah.
I just run to the right hand side, but I'm not really sure where to go when I
Yep.
have so much freedom of choice.
Right.
Yep.
And you talk about a game that is really all mechanics. I mean, the stories have never been a
Yeah, no
truly
one's really playing
engaging
Mario.
story. It's all the
Right.
same kind of.
It's
But
more of the level mechanics.
it is,
Yeah.
and of the overall atmosphere. Like we talked
Yeah.
about the playfulness of it. There's something really that hits the inner kid in you, no matter what. And I just love that. Even though Mario is, I guess, an adult, you never really. He's more like a bouncing.
He's got a mustache.
He does
so.
have a mustache. Even like talk about the start menu. I don't know. You guys remember where you could
you
pick
could,
at his
like-
face?
Yeah, and, like
Yeah.
manipulate his face.
And you're like-
no, it was definitely a game changer for what
Sure.
was coming out around it. And I think it's interesting that the two games that you've listed off so far for you have both included, like, Mario was like a precursor in the terms of like open world.
Yeah.
But like they're both the games that you like.
It's
are,
something
like,
I really am attached to. There's an idea of freedom.
being able to get yourself lost
Yeah.
in a world, like not a level, a world.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's one thing that I really enjoy
Where
about games.
anything can happen. These open sandbox
Yeah.
games. I don't know. There's something in me that is really attracted to that stuff.
Yeah.
Just you never know what's going to happen. I love it.
Yep.
So that's my number 2, Mario 64, which I'm sure is on a lot of people's lists.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. Can't go wrong.
Nope. All right. So I'd say for my number two is it's an older one too. And it is Star Wars Dark Forces.
Fuck.
You got a bunch of blanks
Yeah.
over
Nothing,
here.
nothing,
We don't.
nothing.
I don't even know how to react to that
Not
statement.
Battlefront. I
No,
played
not Battlefront. Not Battlefront.
Wait,
It's
is
Dark
that-
Forces. Dark Forces came out in 1995.
Holy crap!
Come on, man. Come on. That's
My
not
bro
fair.
wasn't even 3. Are you kidding me?
It's too long.
It was my first introduction into first person shooter. And now the thing about this and why it holds a special place in my heart is because I am a huge Star Wars fanboy.
If you guys could
If you could see in this room that we're recording in, I have like
I'm
a
drinking out of a Star Wars glass right now.
I have a
Vader
Star Wars
is looking
mug.
at
I
us.
have a Yoda bobblehead, a Star Wars lunchbox, a Star Wars movie poster, a like 3-foot tall Darth Vader statue. It's everywhere and it's very apparent. So I love Star Wars and everything about it. And so it was one of the first Star Wars games.
I'm literally looking over my shoulder and finding more and
and
more
more
Star
Star
Wars
Wars.
things.
Just go look around.
I'm going,
Look up here.
oh,
Oh,
it
there's-
really
there's
is.
Boba Fett over
I
there.
did catch Boba Fett. I
You
didn't
said
catch.
that
There's a
I'm
Boba
not
Fett
a
up
fan of
here.
Star Wars. Did they know that? And
Not,
that
oh God.
we're gonna have
He's
to
going to
butt
have to get
heads.
out now. But
This
like,
isn't a film podcast, guys. Come on.
but still,
changing it.
So because of my love of Star Wars, I fucking loved Dark Forces, and I played the shit out of that game too because it was just like it was a first-person shooter, and so it was the one time when again early game, but still you were able to feel like you were in the Star Wars universe, and that was awesome for me.
And we're talking 1995.
We're talking
In
1995
a first-person shooter.
In a first-person
There's no
shooter.
way it looked that good though.
It doesn't,
I'd
but
be surprised.
no, it does
But
not look
it,
that
it
good.
takes you in the world.
Yes.
And that's more important.
Yeah, it got you into the world, and what was cool about it too is it was a story outside of the movies, And outside of, which I know other Star Wars games have done, but, first time really playing a Star Wars game and all that stuff, and it took you outside and you were playing as Kyle Katarn, who everyone's like, at that time was probably like, who? Unless you were like really into reading the books and everything like that, like you would know who he was then. But, so basically you're Kyle Katarn and you basically are tasked by the Rebel forces to be like an undercover spy, or not undercover spy, but more like of a commando figure, I guess, to go in and steal like Death Star plans. And then you have to steal like I could be wrong on the Death Star plans. It's been a while since I played, but basically the goal of the game is to go and you have to defeat the Empire's latest weapons project, which is the Dark Trooper project, which are like these super soldier like stormtroopers basically, and they were going to be the next huge attack on the Alliance, and you were sent by the Alliance to steal plans and ultimately shut down the project. And so, but you got to go to play on Coruscant. You played on the Hutt homeworld of Nar Shaddaa. I'm going to go a little deep here right now.
I'm concerned. Every time we have these conversations, it's going to be...
Oh, God. All right.
So anyway, catch up on Star Wars.
Basically, you move into a lot of different worlds, and that, at that time, I'd really kind of only read about in books or had, heard mentioned in the movies, but then to see them and then like, Boba Fett is my favorite Star Wars character of all time.
It's so cliche.
He's awesome.
Even I know who that is.
He's awesome. You cannot deny that Boba Fett is awesome.
Jar Jar Binks?
No.
Oh, he's my favorite.
Everyone hates Jar Jar Binks.
Guess what my nickname was in like circa 1998 when episode 1 came out?
Was it really Jar Jar Binks?
It was Jar Jar Binks because my name is Jar.
That's hilarious.
Jar Jar Binks.
Why do people not like Jar Jar Binks?
Because he was like this awkward caricature and just like a terrible like conversational.
He was just so misunderstood. You just weren't really appreciating the value of his.
Why did they should have excluded him from the clique?
Well, I mean, once they introduced him, they kind of they couldn't just not have him show up and be like, "Oh, Jar Jar died." Sorry, everybody. Because
like this, right?
Yeah, it's like you couldn't just like end episode 1 and then like at episode 2, then be just like, yeah, random explosion, he's dead.
There never was Jar Jar Binks.
I mean, that'd be really realistic.
Jar Jar who?
Yeah, you're imagining
so
things.
But anyway. But no, but then you got like all these cool weapons. You got to fight against like other Star Wars characters. Like you got to fight against Boba Fett, which I never understood since he doesn't die.
I mean, was it hard for you, like fighting your favorite?
No, he's not a robot. He's a
robot.
He's just a very, very skilled bounty hunter human. And so,
I know. He's got the green mask.
Yeah. He never died in the movie, even though everybody thinks a lot of people thought he did in Return of the Jedi. He did not. Of course, we'll see how much the story changed since Disney basically reset all Star Wars canon. But that's a conversation for another time and probably another podcast. But a totally different brand of podcast.
Totally different style of podcast.
I'll just start my own podcast just by myself, just me ranting about
Jar Jar Binks coming to you live.
Shit. That's gonna stick around now. But being able to be immersed into a Star Wars world like that, and for it to be a first-person shooter, and it was a good first-person shooter. Like it came out on DOS and Mac machines at first, but then they re-released it a year later for the PS1. And so now you can actually buy it as like a digital online in the PlayStation Store. So I did.
Did they update anything?
No, they didn't update anything.
I would like to see just a screenshot of this game.
It's good. I'll pull it up after we're done. It's like it's a fun game, and it's one that you can, again, maybe if you're used to the shooters of today, you might not find it as fun, but one that I love it because I had it as a kid when it came out, and it was amazing, and I loved it. So but I mean, it's also been forever since I played it all the way through because it was an old game and not available up until recently for modern platforms. So I have kind of it was a good game because it was a good game answer. So, but we
should have to replay our top 3. And
we should. I mean, I can't really
play this.
I am currently replaying my number 1, so I periodically play it all the time.
Great segue, Mogan.
So, I know, right? Let's just go on ahead
with your number
and
1.
talk about me. So it was really, really hard to pick my number 1. There were so many competing games, but going off of a series, I feel like it was one of the most unique in the series. My all-time favorite is going to be The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, a very divisive installment. I remember when it first came out for the GameCube, this was another one that I think I saw it on XPlay. And when people were first talking about it, the only friends that I really had at that time that played video games were all boys. And they all looked at Wind Waker and went, "Oh, look at the graphics. It's for babies." That was the vernacular.
It's a lot more toony than
it's a shame because they were missing out on so much when I first played it, coming from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. This kind of goes back to the open world concept. Compared to everything that had come before it, I had never felt more that you could go wherever you wanted. So it takes place on the Great Sea. And as someone that has grown up...
is it called the Great
It
Sea?
is. It's called the Great Sea. I'm not just making crap up over here.
I love
It's called the
sea.
Indian Ocean. No, it's called the Great Sea. So you're on a boat and you're on the high seas, and the only land are all really small islands. And that was so different for me because in all of the other games, you're landlocked. You go around, you might have a lake, you might get a river, but the majority of the game takes place on land.
Yeah.
So transitioning to an open world where you were sailing everywhere, and where you were lucky if you got basically the shortcut where you could whirlwind your way across the Great Sea a little bit, make it easier to get from one side of the map to the other, but there weren't really... Even though there were technically borders, if you sailed too far on the map, your boat would tell you, no, we're getting a little off track here. We got to turn back, save all of those people that you promised you were going to save. So you couldn't technically go everywhere, but you always felt like you could. And something that basically built on that were the sequels. So technically, Wind Waker has 2 sequels, Phantom Hourglass, and then even later Spirit Tracks. So in those following games, you see that life did go on beyond the borders of the Great Sea, beyond where you could go in Wind Waker. There was more out there. So you always had that sensation of, there's so much more out there that I haven't found yet. I gotta get out there.
Yeah.
So even within the game itself, without being able to technically escape the map, there was still so much to discover, and this is very true. So I bought the Collector's Edition. So the Wind Waker Wii U Collector's Edition console, when it came out, I about lost my mind.
Is it a Wii that has like an image of
it does.
Toon
So
Link on it?
No, it doesn't have an image. So the Wii U gamepad itself basically just has this really gorgeous gold filigree around the edges. And then, of course, the console itself came preloaded with the HD remake of Wind Waker. Now, what's funny is initially I scoffed at the actual HD remake because I'm such a classic game snob that I went, psh, I don't need fancier graphics and updated gameplay systems. But when I booted it up, I literally cried because
you have a very strong connection with Zelda.
I do. So this was the one for me. And when I booted it back up, it wasn't new in the sense it wasn't new content, but seeing it revitalized literally brought tears to my eyes. I sobbed playing the game, just crying so hard because it's all so beautiful. And this most recent playthrough, I don't really, especially The Legend of Zelda, I hate using cheats. I hate looking up walkthroughs. It's the kind of thing where if I can't find it on my own for these particular games that I love so dearly, I don't deserve to find everything that the game has to offer. And this most recent time playing through, I found a heart piece that I had never found before. And it was so exciting to me to go, oh, that's where it was. I can't believe it. You just had to freaking get a seagull to swirl around. Duh, I can't believe I didn't think of that.
You're weeping.
So even though I've been literally playing this game for over a decade, there was still something I hadn't found.
That's awesome.
So that was a really big moment for me as a Legend of Zelda fan, and that's a big part of why it's number 1. Now, I could go on and on about the soundtrack to Wind Waker. Arguably the single best soundtrack of any of the games. I don't care what anybody else says.
Wow.
You can
Those
listen.
are big words.
Those are big words. Fight me on it. So I could listen to the soundtrack of the game forever and never get tired of it. Sometimes I turn it on to the title screen and go do other stuff. I might clean my kitchen while listening to Dragon Roost Island soundtrack. So it's permeated my life to such an extent that it would be ridiculous for it not to be my number 1.
Nice.
I think that's a very important reasoning for having it to your number 1 is how much it has almost changed the course of your life.
I mean, it's the measure that I judge a lot of other games on.
Yeah.
My number 1 is very similar, but that's some of the things you're talking about with Wind Waker is similar experiences I had with like Oblivion and Skyrim. You look at the Oblivion map, and if you scroll up, you can't go there, but it says Skyrim above where you are.
Oh, I did not know that.
So there's a thing, there's a place called Skyrim. I wonder if I'll ever get to go there. And sure enough, a couple years
That's
later,
very
you do get to
cool.
go there. I know.
Dragon Age series is like that.
Yeah.
Is it?
Their map system does that too. Like you see areas you can't go to, but then like later games you are in those areas.
Yeah. And I appreciate that we're talking about this because I think to a lot of people, they're like, well, duh, like that's how games work. But like, there's something special about that.
And it didn't.
you know?
It didn't really used to be that way.
It's building a sense of excitement and wonder for something that you don't even know what it is yet.
Right. But now people are just like, oh, it's going to be an expansion pack or blah, blah. You know, like I like the more of the sense of discovery that I'm glad that I feel like we still have, you know, for this kind of stuff.
Yep.
Wind Waker, interesting. I need to play that. Have you played any Zeldas, Jarrett?
Yeah, I played some Zelda.
Okay.
I mean, like which ones?
I mean, like,
I would like to know.
I've been Link in Smash Brothers.
No, it counts. That counts.
No. I've played through
Smash Brothers. That's a good answer.
Ocarina of Time. I've played through, and
I've
I think a little bit of Majora's Mask. I've also played.
Okay.
I would love to play Majora's Mask, and I've been saying this for probably 4 years now. I want a Nintendo 3DS. Whenever this says they came out, I was like, God,
Now
really
is
want
the
that.
time.
Because they got Majora's Mask. I want
Yeah,
to play
no,
it.
so
And it looks
they-
dark.
It is.
Yes.
So I could harp on and on
We'll
about
do a whole
this.
Zelda
We can have
show.
a
Don't
whole talk 10 hours nonstop. So in and of itself, Majora's Mask, the overall feel of the game was very unique.
Yeah,
Compared,
I love that.
it was really interesting. So if you definitely should play it.
The only Zelda I've played is Twilight Princess, and that's all I played. And sometimes I'll talk to people about video games, and I'll be like, "Well, have you played Zelda?" And that's all I played was Twilight Princess. That's how big of an impact it had on me. I'm like, you.
And I mean, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
It was. I mean, you know, I never played it before. I never played the earlier ones. I'm like, oh, you know, a lot of people like Zelda. I'll get this. I had a Wii, and I felt like I knew what everyone was talking about.
Yep.
The atmosphere, like this, the whole, again, like you talk about Mario, the whole tone and the feeling of it, of going out there. It's not like Oblivion where it's like this big wide open place. It's much more your narrow journey, you know, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, Twilight Princess was a big game for me for sure.
For a lot of other people, for all of the people that decided they weren't going to play Wind Waker because they didn't like the graphics, Twilight Princess was the next step from Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
So in terms of sheer graphic impact, going from Ocarina of Time to suddenly Twilight Princess was a massive shock. One of my dearest friends, when she first even looked at Twilight Princess, she could not believe the progress that had been made.
Yeah.
So if you hadn't played Wind Waker and you had only been playing, you know, the older games since then, the N64 games, it was a big shock and it was really revolutionary for its time.
Yeah. The graphics are very good in Twilight Princess.
They
and the
are.
mechanics, the whole Wii. Yeah.
Yeah, the mechanics
Very
worked
well
out
done.
really well.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 2.
Number one. We're at number one right now.
Excusez-moi. Okay, my number 1. My number 1, we talked about games that kind of really saturate into your life, and Halo 2 was like that for me. And that is why that is my number 1 pick. And you talked about yours being very difficult to choose. Mine was very easy to choose. I knew from the get-go it'd be Halo 2. Just because I could go on and on about Halo 1, and a lot of people could. It's a terrific game, and such a clutch game for the Xbox and Microsoft, obviously. You know,
Yeah.
people know that. And the anticipation for Halo 2 was huge. I mean, I think at the time it was one of the biggest media events in the world. It might still hold some records in some sort of... it might, I don't know if it's for like amount of money it grossed in the entertainment industry. I know at the time it was a kind of a record breaker.
It was massive.
It was huge, obviously. And so continuing Master Chief's story in the campaign was a big thing for me. I mean, I remember getting it, you know, midnight release, skipping school the next day, all that stuff. My parents let me stay home so I could play Halo 2.
Awesome.
And continuous story, I think the story of Halo is really well done. I'm not like a huge sci-fi guy, but there is the emotional connection between him and Cortana. There is the whole dynamics between the Covenant. I mean, it's really well constructed, really in depth, and one of those games that obviously has novels written about it or that go off of it. So it's kind of it's one of those universes, maybe not like Star Wars in that big, but it has the ability to go down these different avenues, which Halo 2 did. You got to play as the alien race, which was very interesting to play as the Arbiter. And people had mixed feelings about it. People definitely had mixed feelings about the ending.
No, but that was awesome how you could be in like the co-op version. You could play, one person was Master Chief while the other player was the Arbiter.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I know. And I don't know how much you know about Halo.
I mean, I have seen it with my eyes. Does that count? No, I played
You're probably familiar with the soundtrack to it.
Yes, actually, I was going to say Video Games Live did a fantastic cover of a Halo medley. Medley.
Yeah. The soundtrack is obviously famous now.
God.
The opening.
And it is gorgeous. It's phenomenal.
The soundtrack.
It's amazing, and some of the stuff they added to. There's there's like
music.
There is like I think level 2 or 3 when you get to Earth, and that was the big thing. We're gonna fight on Earth. That was a huge.
Yep.
I remember everyone's like, "That's so exciting! We can fight on Earth." And there's a level where there's a cutscene, and we can talk about the Master Chief Updated, which just came out in Master Chief Collection, and they updated the cutscenes, and they updated a lot of things, and it's just
the cutscenes are ridiculously gorgeous.
It's like a movie. I mean, it's very cinematic already, but to have that updated graphics is really terrific. The music's heightened, everything, and you got the pelicans that are flying through this destroyed city. The music's very light. They did a very good job with kind of doing these counterpoint musics in a lot of places, which I love. And then a scarab comes out and you get, blows up the pelican, you get into it. But besides the campaign, which I thought was terrific, even with the ending, it didn't really bother me. A lot of people thought it was a cliffhanger and that they were bummed, but I was like, I was okay with it.
It sets up for Halo 3.
It sets it up. And it was the multiplayer, though, that obviously had me hooked, still has me hooked. I mean, I still play Halo 2 multiplayer to this day. It's been years, and I still play. And I still like to think I'm pretty good. But I used to be terrific, and I'm not just trying to toot my own horn, but I was like, I'm going to go professional.
Here we go again.
About 100th time I've heard this story.
Everyone knows that I could have been a pro in Halo 2. I'm going to be like Grandpa, Like, I could have been something. I could have been a contender.
I was just doing a damn podcast talking about my glory days.
Yes, I know. What has happened? I had a real chance. But, the map design, the whole melee grenade, I guess that's what you call it, the weapon, melee, grenade, that trifecta that Halo... I don't know if I want to say they invented, but if not invented, they perfected in a lot of ways. And a lot of games owe a great deal of debt to what Halo did with multiplayer mechanics and gameplay.
Well, they just owe to multiplayer becoming a big thing because of Halo.
Well, you talk about Xbox Live, and you talk about when Halo 2 came out. I mean, Halo 2 was Xbox Live, in my opinion. I mean, they had Unreal Tournament, which was terrific, and they had, I think they had Madden. They did have a fair amount of games that were using Xbox Live, but
Call of Duty at that time had some multiplayer.
Yeah, I think so. But it was really, Halo 2 was such a dominant force in the industry. And that's not why I liked it, but I liked it. There's a reason for that. It was just such a well-balanced game. And it was one of the first times I could see how games could be a truly competitive thing. I mean, when at the height of when I was really doing all this Major League Gaming, like playing these professionals and stuff and doing 4-on-4 and like a map like Lockout.
Yep.
It's like a game of chess, and it's like an interactive I don't want to use the word, athleticism, but the amount of thinking and the amount of reflexes that is required is pretty amazing. And I realized that gaming could be a sport.
And it is very much becoming so.
It is.
They just had that big news story about the team that won millions of dollars in a competition.
Right.
So it's obviously, obviously it's lived up to that. It's morphed into
league, that. And Halo 2, I think, was a big kickoff for that, even though I'm sure I'm missing things before that people would easily debate me.
I think the only thing that really comes to my mind that might have had a big, esports following like that would have been the first StarCraft.
StarCraft, that's what I was thinking of too. That's obviously
but that's a different genre of a game.
It is, and there was something about, for me, the first person, there is strategy, but there's just such a immediate strategy to it. When someone comes in, you have low shields, and they have a shotgun, and you have a battle rifle. What do? You got two plasmas, you got a frag, and you got to, for that second, you got to figure out what you want to do. And I love that, and I still love it to this day. And I remember I used to watch Halo 2 montages, and to see these great players do great things was just so kick ass.
Yeah, and it's awesome that because of the Master Chief Collection, a lot of that is coming back.
It is,
and like you can find a lot of these like incredible kill videos and stuff that are coming back because they brought back the franchise in that way.
Right. I mean, there's a reason they remade the whole thing to do the Master Chief Collection. I mean, they didn't, and which was such a fucking letdown for like months and months. I mean, did you get it when it came out?
No, I haven't got the Master Chief Collection yet.
You don't have it.
Yeah, I don't have the Xbox One yet. It's on my list. It is my next console purchase.
Okay.
Is an Xbox One, and I'm hoping to snag one during Black Friday this year.
Nice.
But it's going to be a Master Chief Collection edition and all that stuff because I have always loved Halo. That is the reason like I played Xbox stuff was because of Halo.
Yeah.
Like I agree with Mogan. I am a Sony fanboy, and like I like PlayStation more. But like there are some undeniable exclusives. Like I bought my Xbox 360 because I wanted to play Halo. So like that says something in and of itself that one game makes you sure. It's not like I like Call of Duty on the 360 better than the PS3. No, it's like this one game is making me throw down $300 to buy a console.
That's really the power of video games.
It is.
You can literally hash over tons of money for just one game.
Because you know the experience that it's going to give you.
Yes,
it's incredible.
For sure. I totally agree. But yeah, you really missed a terrible period when the Master Chief Collection came out.
Oh, I heard all about it.
I didn't hear anything about it. Do tell.
It was so mad. It was just nothing worked. I mean, that's the base. Like all you need to know.
It was broken.
It was broken, and it was nothing working. Me and my friends were so frustrated. Like all on Xbox Live, talking to each other every night, and we try every night so stupidly. like this is
maybe it'll work this time.
Yeah, no, we'll get in the game
That happened to me when Diablo 3 came out for Mac.
Did that have problems?
Diablo 3 had massive problems on the Mac. Like Windows, it was okay, but Macs, like there was some like server issue. I can't even remember what it is now. But yeah, it was like I had to wait months for a patch, for Blizzard to release a patch before it was able to work on the Mac. I mean, there were some like you could try some like really janky workaround that somebody posted on Reddit or something like that, but like for the most part, like I was like,
my roommates just installed Windows on their Macs to be able to play Diablo 3 via Windows.
I wasn't that like crazy. Like,
they were.
I just waited. They released the patch and then I was able to play. But that was very frustrating. Like having to wait those first few months, first few weeks and stuff before they finally were able to fix the problem.
There's a mode in Diablo 3 that's like super hardcore mode. Right?
Nightmare, I believe. Is what
and that, like, if you die, like, the game's over.
Yeah,
something like that. How cool is that?
That is
pretty
cool.
Like a first-person shooter.
Permadeath.
Like
that's awesome.
I want something like that in a first-person shooter.
Yeah,
just saying.
All right,
Jared,
my number one game.
Number one.
It's a recent game. It came out only 2 years ago.
Oh my God! Can we guess?
Yeah,
give us. I think you guys know that.
Oh, yes, I do know.
Yes, oh, never mind. I don't want to be the only one guessing.
It is a recent game, but so it's a little different from y'all's number ones in that regard. But the game is The Last of Us.
Oh, of course. Never mind. I do know this one.
The Last of Us is one of those games that has permeated my being in the sense of that I played through the whole thing. And like I'd seen gameplay footage of it from like E3, and I'd seen the trailers. I was like, dude, this looks awesome. I'm really excited about this game. And then I got the chance to play it, and was immediately hooked within the first 20 minutes of the game because it is a more recent enough game, and especially with the remastered edition and stuff like that, some people out there might not have really played through it yet. So I will be as spoiler free as I can. But the first 20 minutes hit you with such an emotional gut punch, and to see that in a game, and to be actually affected by that emotion in the game, as if it would be if it had happened in front of me or in a movie, what you would expect out of a movie,
right? And
to get that experience from a game was incredible for me. And then it just built on that through the rest of it. Like never before. I mean, also it helped because it was very cinematic. It was basically a game. There was never a black load screen in the game. It would jump from gameplay to cinematic.
Yeah, that helps.
Cleanly.
Yeah.
And so I would never before had I been more connected to a character or characters, Joel and Ellie.
Right.
And even side characters. I'd never been more just attached to characters as them, and when they had pain and things weren't going right, you felt it, you got depressed, you got sad when the story was sad, you got happy when the story was happy, you were amazed. And again, and I think again because it is a newer game, the world it created, this a post-apocalyptic, trees are growing through skyscraper kind of thing. Like, it's a beautiful game
It
in
is.
that regard too.
Visually, it's
and
gorgeous.
especially with the remastered edition, which I bought. Even though I bought it on PS3, I bought the remastered edition, and it has the photo mode where you can take the photo
that's
screenshots and all that stuff,
That's
and
very cool.
do some slight editing to it, and make some incredible shots of the in-game shots. It's fantastic. But so aside from the gameplay and all that, and the story, and just how incredibly emotional and attached to that story you can get, the soundtrack is fantastic. I bought the soundtrack. Actually, I got the soundtrack free. We came with part of the downloadable codes or whatever that came with the game. So I got the soundtrack there, and it's amazing just in how it's subtle yet powerful. It's very simple. Like, some tracks have nothing but kind of a drum beat with some minor supporting sounds, not really instruments, but sounds playing in the background. But then the credits track, The Last of Us, it's called The Last of Us, is it gives all the feels.
I know. I feel guilty that I've been
I
talking
wanna hear
all
Wind Waker
about
too.
it.
It gives all the feels. And so
feels.
I bought that soundtrack. I have not yet, and it kills me that I have not yet played the DLC that came out for it, Left Behind.
That's already out?
That explores more of Ellie's backstory before she and Joel met. So I need to play that still. I might actually just crank that out one weekend because it's fairly short, but
Right.
I need to play through that, and it kills me that I haven't yet. But no, that's I've bought the book. That's The Art of the Last of Us. I
saw that on your Facebook.
Yeah, me too.
I saw that.
I just shelled out $80 for the soundtrack on vinyl, even though I already had
Holy
it.
fuck. That's awesome.
I'm wearing a Last of Us shirt right now. It's just
So what is the meaning of that symbol?
it's
like a moth,
it's for the fireflies.
dragonfly.
The fireflies,
Okay.
the freedom fighter people, because it's this disease takes over, and anything, like what you see in previous, there's a disease outbreak or whatever, it's sectioned off quarantine zones and all this stuff. And so, but also as is prone to be in those situations, the governments can tend to take over and be more of a dictatorship than and stuff like that. So the Fireflies is the group that was fighting against that to the government, and just the government forces are kind of like freedom fighters in a sense. Which you interact with, but you're not necessarily a part of in the game. But so on top of all that, of watching it, I watched a documentary about the making of the game. It's called Grounded, and it's free on Amazon Prime streaming right now. So you can go watch it. And I recommend, if you haven't played the game, there are spoilers. You'll find out some
Maybe don't go watch that
play the
right
game
now.
first.
you'll find out some endings, but still, once you play the game, or even if you don't care about spoilers and just want to watch it, I highly recommend watching it, because it also shows how much, for me being on the film side of things and stuff like that, to see how much. I know games are a creative undertaking, and they require lots of people to work on it. Hell, the credits for a game are can be 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. Which is more than a movie. But still, it had interviews with the actor Troy Baker, who plays Joel, and Ashley Johnson, I believe, is who plays Ellie, and interviews with them, and then a couple of the supporting characters and stuff like that, and then it had footage of them doing the motion capture stuff. Which but for me, what really showed this is I knew they did some motion capture, but I didn't realize that they did the voice recording, and that the actors were actually I thought they did the moves and stuff really, but I didn't understand that they were they were acting the scene as if they were in a movie, but they were being captured, for this game. And to see even though you never actually saw their real faces, the emotion that they would put into these scenes and into these cutscenes, one during the recording of one the filming of one scene, Troy Baker is bawling his eyes out.
Interesting, yeah.
And it's no one's going to see your face, dude.
Right.
but they're actors, and they're so committed, and to see that level of commitment.
You can hear emotion. It's not the kind of thing where if you can't see a face, you can't feel the emotion. Of course, you can pick up on that.
But of how they were able to, pick up his voice the emotion of his voice, and tie it and make it believable in the game. There are some games you can tell the face does not match the emotion that's in the words, but Last of Us just hit it on all pegs, and in every checkbook, and it's just a fantastic game. So you guys need to play that one if you have not done it yet.
I have
behind.
I have a filmmaking friend here who's a little bit older than us, and he is a big gamer, and he was if The Last of Us was a movie, he thinks it would win Academy Awards,
which it's going to be.
Oh,
is
when are they making it a movie?
I think it's in development right now. I
Mark
haven't heard.
Wahlberg.
Major spoilers.
I haven't heard. I don't think there are any actors really attached to it
Who
yet.
would be a good actor?
Man, Game Informer had a.
Hugh
They
Jackman.
did an article. No, not
Ellen
Hugh Jackman.
Page.
A fan cast.
I mean, Ellen Page, yes, because there's that whole thing.
Actually,
of-
didn't she sue
look
them
alike.
because
She-
she thought that
there
they
was-
based
there was-
Ellie off of her?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was
they
a
look
little
like
hubbub
together.
about
But isn't
that.
she like 14 in the game? How old is she?
Yeah, Ellie was like 12,
Ellen
13,
Page is
something
like
like that.
25 or
Yeah,
something.
and then she was in that game Beyond Two Souls where it is actually Ellen Page, Willem Dafoe, but I never played that one yet.
Interesting.
But no, it is being made. But Game Informer had an article where they do like that sometimes. Like, if this game were a movie, here's who we'd pick, and like, you know, Troy Baker obviously would be awesome as Joel. But the thing is, like, he actually is like, he did an excellent voice for Joel, but he's I guess a little too pretty to be Joel.
Oh, gotcha.
You know,
not
like,
quite the
talking
rugged
about, Jared?
aspect.
not quite rugged enough to pull off Joel.
Give him a beard.
But his voice, he did an excellent portrayal as Joel.
Is that how Joel talks?
No, it's just like,
Come with me.
it's like, Ellie, you're walking on mighty thin ice.
Is he Southern?
Kind of, yeah.
Actually, doesn't the game start in Austin? Yeah, it does.
The
fuck?
Yeah.
Which blew my mind too. I'm like, oh my god,
we live
I'm at my
here.
house.
it starts in Austin, then you eventually wind up
Who
in
are
Boston.
are there zombies?
It's not zombies as much as they're like mutated. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could say
Yeah.
like zombies are mutated humans, but basically it's this fungus. Which here's the creepy part about it: they got the inspiration for this fungus from an actual fungus
Oh, really?
that grows on Earth that will plant its spores inside the minds of ants,
Oh, I know what you're talking. They
And-
control the ants.
and it controls the
Oh.
ants.
About.
And so they're like, what if that mutated to human scale? And so that's basically what this is.
Cool.
And
That
so,
is
like,
pretty cool.
And so like everything, all the zombies, there are the infected, which are like really like they're sick. They're the early stages of the infection. Then there are the clickers, which like the fungus has like grown out and like cracked through the skull. So like there's like this like it's like growing on them.
Gross.
And then there are ones that are like
Gross.
man, I can't remember the official name for them, but they're basically like have been infected for so long that they're just armored in fungus basically.
I have not personally played the game, but my younger brother, The Last of Us probably is his number one.
Wow.
And so I have watched
this
him
game.
play it. So I haven't seen it all the way through to the end.
I mean-
but I have seen the clickers and I've seen the armored ones, and even seeing him fight them, I'm going, I'm not sure.
But it's
I
like-
could quite take them on.
I mean, but it's hard because it's like the clickers are drawn to you by sound, and so you have when you're fighting them, you have to be super quiet.
Interesting.
But like you're only since it is like a survival game, you're given very limited resources to do things. Like you might only have like 5 bullets in your gun at one time,
I love stuff like that.
and like
Yeah.
you have to craft survival stuff. Like
Yeah.
you have to find things to make tools and weapons and things like that. So no, it is by far hands down. Like it was an easy pick for me. Like nothing has come close to
Yeah.
affecting me near as The Last of Us has.
nice.
I need to get a PlayStation.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, if we continue to do this, I'm going to need to get
Why don't
more
we all just
gaming
rotate? I'll give
consoles.
you my Wii U, you give me your
true.
PlayStation, you give him your Xbox.
Yeah, and just catch up on some games. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm thinking about future shows. I'm thinking about, man, what other games, it's very easy to talk about your favorite games.
Right.
It's much a different thing. It's much different to talk about games. I don't know.
Yeah,
I gotta make
that
sure
you haven't played yet.
Well, or that are just not as good in your eyes, or you haven't played as much of. But I guess because like if we talked about like top Nintendo games, I could I don't want to say Mario 64 again. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can have it on the list, but no, I get what you mean. No, I've thought of quite a few topics that we could make a whole other show on.
Yeah.
Right.
just from that what we brought up and talked about today.
Yeah.
But I think that's basically pretty much what our top 3. So
I think so. Honorable mentions? Any ones that
man.
were tough to leave out?
I would like to honorable mention for Pikmin 2.
Pikmin 2?
Pikmin 2. Highly strategic game. It's another Nintendo
I
game.
played the original one.
Yeah,
I played the original
Pikmin
one.
2 took everything that was good about the first one and fixed all of the gameplay mechanics.
Always a good thing.
So Pikmin 2 just built on it and made it so much better.
Mine is Resident Evil remake for GameCube. The
Oh,
original
Resident Evil 4? Or
Not
just the
Resident-
remake?
Just the remake.
Oh,
I think it's the
okay.
original Resident Evil. When they go in raccoons, that's in Raccoon Forest,
Right.
I think. They're in a mansion.
yeah,
Terrifying.
I mean, they all
they
are.
just announced a remake of Resident Evil 2.
Did they?
Yep.
Those games are solid.
Yeah, I've liked those. 6 I hated.
That's not when you're in Africa, is it?
No, that's
That's
5.
5.
5 was good. I liked 5.
Which one's 6?
6 is
6?
the one where you're like you play as like 3 different characters, and you like switch off between their stories. But like they'll intersect, so you wind up like playing the same area like 5 times, and it was really it was just dumb.
Tedious.
It was an interesting concept to try to undertake, and I applaud that. Yeah. But the execution just came out just bad. So for everyone to recap, my top picks, starting with number 1, were The Last of Us, Dark Forces, and Civilization. Oh, I'd have to say my honorable mention would have to be Assassin's Creed 2. I liked Assassin's Creed. I played Assassin's Creed 2, and that's when I was like, I really like the series.
I'm not an Assassin's Creed fan.
I will say there have been some shortcomings in the Assassin's Creed series. That's why I did not.
You mean of the 5,000 Assassin's Creed installments? Well, they're just cranking it.
They're cranking think it.
There's a new one every week.
That's what I mean. Like
Electronic Arts is a whole subject.
Assassin's Creed 1 and Assassin's Creed 2, because they were so different from the other, but then since then they've all become very similar. Now with that, I'm still excited about each new one when it comes out.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that like when I play it, I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing, just because it's Assassin's Creed. So, but I mean,
I tried Unity, and I don't know. I have poor things to say.
They're fun, but they're not in my top. But Assassin's Creed 2 was really fun because it had those moments of just like, oh, I'm a badass.
Yeah, there are a lot of those moments.
Which I had a couple of those in Assassin's Creed 1, but Assassin's Creed 2, like the whole game was kind of that way. And I was like, oh, this is good.
Take me away from my life.
Exactly. So yeah, just as I was saying, everybody, to recap, my top games were The Last of Us, Dark Forces, and the Civilization series, or Civilization 3, to pick one. Zach's were Halo 2, Mario 64, and Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And Mogan's were The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Okami, the Wii version, and what was your third one? It
was Tomb Raider, 2012.
Tomb Raider, the 2012 game.
Interesting six.
So I think that's about it for the show. Any last closing final thoughts from anyone about any topic whatsoever?
When I talk for a long period of time, I tend to build up a lot of saliva in my mouth. It's actually kind of uncomfortable. So
my mouth gets really dry.
Yeah, I'm a little. We have the opposite problems. So it's like, oh, well, this is nice.
You had some water, Mogan.
I know. I ran out. I drank it all.
I did also notice that as well.
Well, at least no one had bathroom breaks. We were able to just kind of go through this clean. I just wanted to end on a quick note of, as I said, this is at the beginning of this. This is the first episode of Team Chat, where we will be bringing you our thoughts and opinions on video games and the video game industry as a whole. But I had the privilege to go attend the RTX conference here in Austin, Texas, that's put on by Rooster Teeth, and it was really just an awesome experience hearing some panels from like the co-founder of Rooster Teeth and like what it takes to get started in an industry like this, of kind of what we're doing right now. And I got to see there the guys over from Kind of Funny, who are in this same field, just doing podcasts and just creating content about games or other things. They have one show that's called like Love and Sex Stuff, and it's pretty funny too. But I got to meet them and talk to them, and it's just really kind of a neat thing, like how this show is kind of, for me, was inspired by them. And so it was awesome to get to meet them, talk to them, hear about them. I talked to Greg Miller, and he said it in a panel, and he reinforced it to me when I was talking to him, said like, originally when I was planning this, like how, Zach and I, you and I were talking about like, how do we make this different? How do we make this better from everybody else? Or like, so we're edging out the competition. And he said, it's not like in this field and like how everything's on the internet and everybody sees everything that everybody does. It's not so much competition as it is like we're all collaborators together. Yeah. And so it was just a really great to get to see them. Like, my hat's off to them and what they're trying to do here, and just, trying to do there in with Kind of Funny, and just, of how much of an inspiration it is for what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do here. So
it's a good way to look at it.
It was a great thing to hear, especially like right before we kick off this series and everything. And so, I hope great things come from this. It was a lot of fun talking, doing this first episode with you.
It was a lot of fun.
I think it went pretty well.
Today. I think it went fantastic. I think it was a great first episode.
I did too. I think as it goes on too, it'll only get better, more natural, more relaxed.
I mean, what if it gets worse and more mechanical and just down?
We peaked already.
This might be the high point.
We have peaked. So thanks everyone for listening in, and look for the next episode coming soon. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
I hope we hit record.
Hey, this is Jarrett, and I just had a couple notes before we sign off on this episode. If you have any questions or comments about the episode, please feel free to email us at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter and ask your questions there at teamchatpodcast. Also, I just wanted to let you all know about our Patreon page, where you can go and subscribe. It's at patreon.com/teamchatpodcast. It's Patreon. patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, and you can go and subscribe, and you'll get some cool perks like getting the episodes early before the general release, as well as some other content that we'll be giving out. We appreciate your support, and we hope you'll keep coming back for more episodes.